Divas, I am so excited. We have a special Halloween style episode, and our special guest this week is Stephanie Chandler, the owner and tour guide of Storied Paths. She does these amazing historic walking tours of downtown Tallahassee, and she did not disappoint. So we are going to give you a history lesson like you won't believe about Tallahassee. We've got politics, we've got duels, we've got drinking, we've got state government, we've got house speakers, we have all the things and more. So please join us this week for a special edition of Deeper Dive with Stephanie Chandler.
So now we have in territorial Tallahassee a posse of politicians, and they are armed to the hilt. They are carrying knives and they're carrying guns.
You're listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida. Let's dive in.
I brought notes just to...
Good.
I mean, so, there were things that I was like, oh, this might be fun to talk about, but also just so I have the dates. Usually I have them in my brain, but you just never know.
Oh, I think notes are great. I'm a reporter, and so sometimes you'll hear me stumbling on here trying to Google stuff when I'm not sure of it. So it's better to be prepared. All right. Oh my gosh. Divas, we are offering you a palate cleanse to end all palate cleanses this weekend. I am so excited for a special Halloween episode. That's right. It's a special Halloween episode, and you are going to love this show. So please do send us a message on the socials or send me a DM and let me know what a great job we did. Our special guest this week is Stephanie Chandler, the owner and tour guide extraordinaire of Storied Paths right here in Tallahassee. Welcome to the Speakeasy.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here and kind of honored in a way. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. And she does these amazing walking tours of historical tours of downtown Tallahassee. And we did a ghost tour. That's right. I did a ghost tour with her recently, and I was just so impressed by it. And there's so much political stuff involved in all this. And so we're not getting away from politics, and it's Tallahassee. So we've got all the things for you: ghosts and politics and Tallahassee. And oh, yes, duels.
Yes.
Duels. Right. If you have time and you're in Tallahassee, I highly recommend that you do one of these tours because it was really fun.
Thank you.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first and how you got started on this journey?
So I've been in Tallahassee. I came up here in 1989 as a 17-year-old FSU student and lived on campus for a couple of years and really honestly fell in love with Tallahassee. I had grown up in Michigan and then moved to South Florida as a teenager, and Tallahassee felt, I guess, the flora and fauna feels like it's a good in-between, South Florida and...
Interesting, because it feels like way too north for me, because I grew up in South Florida.
Right.
I'm used to that subtropical climate, but okay.
Yeah, so for me, because I went from one extreme to the other, it
right.
felt very natural here, because I missed the hills and the tree cover and, that kind of thing. And so... Anyway, so I kind of fell in love with Tallahassee. I went back to South Florida for a while and worked in the restaurant business, and then realized that was not a real good long-term goal, and came back and did a master's degree and met my husband and fell in love and stayed.
So did you do a master's in history? Because you know quite a lot about history based on what I learned during our tour.
Right. So no, my master's degree, and I actually was ABD. I started my doctoral. I actually got 2 chapters into my dissertation, but I had 2 children, and then I had to make
life gets in the way.
Yep,
yeah.
Yep. I'm a statistic, and I'm okay with that. But
so am I.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is.
It's okay.
So no, my graduate studies were in religions of Western antiquity. which is fascinating. And it really, what I worked on was the intersection between early Christianity and Judaism and the Greco-Roman world. So politics, religion, culture, and I was really interested in particular in New Testament biblical literature and how all of those things came into play.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. But then that honestly, as much as I loved it, does not translate into a job in the real world.
Oh, no kidding.
Right.
For real?
So I had to kind of, I stayed home with my kids for a little while, and I love history. My parents we didn't vacation as children. We did things, but often they were historical. So we did a big 2 weeks when I was in 5th grade. We took a family vacation to Washington, D.C.
Oh, that's always a great trip for a family.
Yes. And it was, really formative in my mind. But, we did all the Smithsonian's and Arlington Cemetery.
My parents are buried in Arlington.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. So that was formative, and just, those were the kinds of things we did. So we vacationed, but we didn't come down to Disney.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm all for that educational vacation, and you make it fun and you get kids interested.
Right. Yeah.
In history. So I do have a lot of questions, but I also want to let you kind of help guide our time together, because you have the stories. I think you said that you were doing some research. Mm-hmm. I loved the way that you did the tour that I was on. You started with the duel and you left us hanging and you ended with it. And there's little ghost involved in all that. So let me start by asking, do you believe in ghosts?
Oh, yeah, that's a hard question. So I have had personal experiences, but when I was in college at FSU, I actually lived in Reynolds Hall, and the girls and I living in the dorm had lots of experiences. And I'm happy to tell that story. I think I told it on the tour.
Sure. You did tell it. Yeah. I didn't want to put you on the hot spot and ask you about it.
Right.
So.
Oh, no, I can tell it. Let me,
First, I'm going to set it up for the divas.
Yeah.
Reynolds Hall is one of the dorms on campus, or the buildings on campus at FSU, that is rumored to have ghosts.
Yeah. So FSU has so many ghost stories coming out of it. I could do 2 hours just on campus. Every building in the older section, the eastern section of campus, have stories associated with them. So, and Reynolds is one of those. So anyway, I've had kind of personal experiences and I believe that I saw an apparition in a home that I lived in here in Tallahassee.
Oh, wow.
Do I believe in them as I don't know, something real and tangible that I can communicate with? I'm not really sure. I believe that people have really powerful experiences. And I also do believe that we are energy, and that energy can, become connected to a space or to, your environment, and I think that's kind of what's happening when people feel a vibe in a home or in a space. So, yeah, I'm not exactly sure what I believe in, but I do.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. And, but I do believe that people historically have had these powerful experiences, and we're thousands of years of human history have had stories about ghosts.
That's right.
So they're powerful in some, whether it's a cultural learning tool or an actual encounter that we're having that we can't explain. I don't know, but they do affect us. And so.
Okay, well, that's a great answer. So let's talk about, you came supplied with some stories about politics. Mm-hmm. What are some of the most historic political events that you would be telling stories about Tallahassee?
So I usually start talking about how Tallahassee is chosen as a capital.
Mm-hmm. You dashed my myth there. Tell us, because I think a lot of us in the process think that what I believed is true.
Right. So the myth is that there were 2 men who were appointed to basically walk across Florida and meet in the middle, and that would be the site of the new capital. And it's not really that simplistic at all.
And they met in Tallahassee, and boom, there you. That's the explanation for why we're in the middle of nowhere, the capital of the third largest state in the nation.
Right. But that again is a myth. What I usually talk about is, so when Florida became a U.S. territory in 1821, we had two capitals. That was something that the British had set up for their when they had the territory for about 20 years. So we had Pensacola, West Florida, and we had St. Augustine, East Florida. And so when it first became a U.S. territory, they thought, we'll just alternate. So we'll do legislative business alternating between these two capitals. And the first one was in Pensacola, and it was pretty much a disaster. We had lots of issues. So this is 1822. We had a shipwreck on the way. So one legislator was lost at sea.
Oh.
The travel, if you were coming on horseback, was incredibly difficult. There weren't roads like we think of roads today. A lot of times they're coming across on horse trails or old native trails. And so it's dangerous. It's buggy. It's gross. I mean, they're traveling in like May and June, right?
Right.
So how gross is that?
Yeah.
And then they get to Pensacola. We've had one death on a shipwreck, and then yellow fever hits the city. And so they have to remove from the city out to someone's plantation house to kind of get away from this yellow fever outbreak. And one of the politicians actually gets yellow fever and dies.
Oh, boy.
So it's this not a very good start to Florida legislative business, right? So it was so bad that I believe this is true, that year, right after that session, Governor Duvall, he's our territorial governor, writes John Quincy Adams, who was president at the time, and says, we need a central location. This is not going to work. But nothing happens. So the second year, 1823, they meet in St. Augustine. And again, it's, this difficult terrain. If you're riding across Florida, which most of them did not do, it's long. I think it took 3 weeks just to get from Pensacola to St. Augustine.
Oh, wow.
But what most of them did was get on a boat in Pensacola or somewhere up here along the Gulf, and then they would have to go all the way around the coast of Florida, so the entire peninsula to get to St. Augustine, right? And again, that's...
You have to be really devoted to your job to do that.
Yeah. And I think in that, if I remember it correctly, in that second session, they had to start because some people were running late. And so, they got started without everyone there.
Oh, they didn't have a quorum, or they did have a quorum back before the quorum days.
Right. Yeah. So after those 2 years, I think in that legislative session said, this is ridiculous. We need to find a middle ground. And this area, what is now Tallahassee, they were really aware of what was here. Andrew Jackson had already been here, and they had done some land surveys at that time. So they were aware that there was an old Spanish fort here, that there were native villages here. There had been a couple of Spanish missions in this area. So there was a little bit of development. I mean, I'm not talking like communities of people, but especially, not white settlers, but they knew this area. They knew the Cascade. We had a waterfall here. It was beautiful. There were streams. I mean, they also knew that the land was good for agriculture. That 1823 session, basically what they decided is they were going to send someone from Pensacola and someone from St. Augustine to meet in the middle and scope out the land between Ocklackney River and the Suwannee River.
Oh, that's how, okay. So Ocklackney and Suwannee.
Yeah. And then they kind of already knew this space. And so, they kind of knew they were going to come here and look at it and make sure that it would work. So, yeah. So it's not quite as fanciful and mythological as we like to believe.
It's kind of better though when you hear the whole story.
It is. And actually the gentleman from Pensacola, I can never remember Williams, his name was Williams. He comes from Pensacola and is on a boat, and it's 250 miles from here to Pensacola.
That's right.
They took a boat and they were supposed to meet in St. Mark's. And my understanding is that the boat sailed into a bay that didn't have an outlet on the other side. And so they had to stop and come back around. And so it took a lot longer than they expected. So poor Mr. Simmons, who is here waiting from St. Augustine,
right.
He's like, where is he?
Right.
So anyway, they finally meet up, and I think by the time Williams gets here, he at some point survived on crabs and oysters, right? He was exhausted and tired and hungry and
dehydrated. Yeah.
And so, anyway, so
Tallahassee was like the beacon, the shining city on the hill.
Exactly. It was beautiful here. And lush, with the waterfall.
Shangri-La, right. Yeah. Where was the waterfall? Is that the one at Mariana?
That's, Cascades Park.
Oh, right.
So there was originally, there were several small springs that kind of converged over there, and there was a waterfall.
That's why they call it Cascades Park. Okay, y'all, you learn that now too. See, you are going to, and we won't quiz you, but you're going to be learning a lot.
Yeah. And so, we lost that waterfall. Again, this is kind of political, but between the railroad company in the 1800s and then later industry, that waterfall basically became a cesspool. At one point, it was a dumping ground for garbage. Oh, wow. Yeah. And
victim of modernization.
Yes. Yeah. Huh. So that's why we don't have
thank you for that. Yeah. I didn't know that. The only waterfall I know of around here is in Mariana area.
Falling Waters.
Falling Waters. Yeah. There you go. All right. Wow, that's a great story of how we got to. I'm glad I set it up that we started with where you did. You did. I won't take credit for it. I take it back.
It's totally fine.
And we'll be right back with Stephanie Chandler. Divas, you know what time it is. You know what time it is. It's that time. It's the news in haikus. The news in haikus. Dueling and drinking. Posse of politicians. Tallahassee tales. The news in haikus. The news in haikus. Don't forget, we'd love to hear your haiku. You can slide them into my DMs, or you can send them to podcasts. That's podcasts with an S at e.newsserviceflorida.com. Wherever you're listening, please don't forget to subscribe and give us a rating if you like what we're doing. And we're back with Stephanie Chandler talking about Tallahassee history. Do you want to start getting into the duels, or do you want to talk about, we talked a lot about, I didn't realize that Prohibition was such a big part of Tallahassee's history. Yeah. So,
and I've always been fascinated with Prohibition. I don't know
We're
why.
in the Speakeasy.
Right. Okay. Oh, see, perfect.
Right.
Well, what was the movie that they made about Al Capone and Elliot Ness, The Untouchables? Do you remember that movie? I think it was in the 80s.
I heard of it. Yeah.
I loved that movie.
I probably did see it. I was talking to my cousin and his partner. I was mentioning this, that we're doing this and that I was on this tour and there was some Al Capone connection. And she said that she worked on the show Boardwalk Empire. Oh. And that she learned a lot about Al Capone as a result of working on that, and that I guess he lived in other parts of Florida and she had done a lot of research on that. So anyway, tell us about Al Capone.
I mean, I'm not an Al Capone expert, but I do know that, we all know he had a home in Miami, right?
That's right.
But what we don't all know is that he spent a lot of time up here on the Gulf Coast because, so my understanding is he would have liquor shipped in from Cuba. And the easiest way to get up to the middle America was to dock in the Gulf Coast and then take it up the highways.
Huh.
And so he spent time, my understanding is in Destin, Panama City, in that area. And so we actually had bootleggers who would come in and grab that alcohol and then bring it up to the north, the Midwest.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he spent a lot of time up here. Now, my understanding is that there were lots of local rumors, like we have some oral stories from people living in those areas at the time. But just recently, my understanding is they have actually discovered a picture of him playing golf up here, either in like Destin or Panama City.
Oh, wow.
And so it's like our first
real sighting of Al Capone in the Panhandle.
Yeah. And I guess he used an alias while he was here. And
oh, wow.
Part of that is that the governor at the time, Governor Carleton, did not like Al Capone and did not want his business and did not want all of the, the kind of scandal that came with him in Florida.
Right.
And so the best story that I have heard is that I think in 1930, Al Capone had been out of the state for a little while and was coming back in. And Governor Carleton said to law enforcement throughout the state, don't let him in. If you find him, escort him back out or arrest him, right? So he puts out this kind of bulletin to law enforcement, and Al Capone came anyway. And my understanding is he drove through Tallahassee kind of as a,
middle finger to the governor.
Definitely. And the story that I have heard is he drove down Monroe Street by the Capitol and waved.
Oh my gosh.
And that the police officers in town waved
there
back.
You go. And they waved back.
Yeah.
Because they wanted that hooch brought into town, probably.
Right. And and my understanding too is that the sheriffs in Florida were not on, everybody wanted their alcohol.
Sure.
Right? And so they weren't really on board with this whole prohibition thing anyway. And it was going to end in a few years anyway. But the other thing about Tallahassee is we became a dry city long before the country did. So we passed a law in 1904 that outlawed the sale of liquor in town. So, and we had a huge temperance movement.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Those of us in the know that the process is fueled by rage and booze.
Yes.
And it is still quite a thing and I don't know, because I quit drinking almost 20 years ago. So I don't know how much of a thing that is nowadays. My understanding is that kids don't drink much anymore, but there is still quite a lot of imbibing that goes on downtown.
Yes.
After hours. When I first started here, there was a lot of imbibing that went on right inside the Capitol. A lot of the legislators had full bars in their offices. And so that is, just an outgrowth of the historical tradition of the legislature.
Yes. So Luella Knott, the Knott House Museum.
Right. Maybe let's approach it this way. It was like a Wild West situation here that might have contributed to the force of the temperance movement in Tallahassee. So I don't know which you want to do first. Do you want to do the chicken or the egg?
Sure. Okay, so we can go back to territorial Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Right? So we become a state in 1845, right? So Tallahassee is a territorial capital city for about 21 years before 1845. And those first 2 decades were pretty wild here. I know that we had 2 brothels early on. I just read this morning because I was kind of like, okay, let me make sure I got all my information.
I'm sorry. You didn't have to do it.
Oh, no. It's, it's great. I love it. I actually love it. I'm really kind of nerdy. So.
I am too.
But I read this morning that before the Civil War, we probably had 4 brothels operating in town. And it was well known. It wasn't, these were hidden.
Do you have any idea what the population size was then?
I do. I mean, so it's very different between in town and out of town.
Right.
And gosh, off the top of my head, I want to say in town there's maybe 600 people.
Okay, so we're not talking about thousands of people. That's all. Yeah, that's fine. That's accurate. That's all I was wondering. So we had a lot of
right. And don't quote me on that
extracurricular activity.
Yes,
Don't quote me on that. Okay.
Don't quote me on that number. And those numbers are actually really easy to find online. If you can look up the censuses for Leon County. But so we have a racetrack downtown. We've got people bringing in their horses and literally racing and betting. And that encourages drinking and public intoxication. We got the brothels. And then we have this dueling problem. It was, if you think Old West, it was like that. Like
brawling in the street, like
yes.
Deadwood.
Oh, yeah. I mean, politicians are literally fighting in the House, and then that is spilling out into the streets, and they're duking each other out on Monroe Street in Tallahassee. Wow. It's so it was a rough place, and it's no wonder that we have families like the Kroom family. Frances, the wife, did not want to move here. I can't imagine why.
Oh, because it was just too bawdy.
It was that, and there was a real fear at the time. We have to remember that as American settlers are coming into the area, they are pushing out indigenous people.
Yeah.
And there were also some Black communities that had set up here under the Spanish government. And so those communities are being pushed out as American white settlers are coming in. And so there was also fear that there would be some sort of retaliation by Native Americans. And so that's, we get the First and Second Seminole Wars. And so it was a rough area. And I think especially women were looking for a little more social refinement that they had to create if they came.
There wasn't anything to do.
Right. And when people are bored,
it's hot, it's humid, it's hot, it's dangerous, and there's not a lot of there's no Fifth Avenue.
Right, exactly. And so so it was a pretty rough town, and dueling became a major problem, and actually, the last duel that takes place in Tallahassee is the impetus for cleaning up the whole town, and then we eventually get statehood. And so I do have to wonder if that hadn't happened, if we would have gotten statehood. They'd been like, we're not ready for you yet.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about that last duel, or do you want to move on to temperance? Because I think that's really interesting. That last duel also, I think, was the trigger for Tallahassee to have the first police force.
Yeah.
Did I remember that correctly?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So
it's a story. Yeah. Tell us the whole story. It's a long story. First, before you do that, I looked it up, and it said the 1845 Florida State Census records that Leon County had a population of 66,000, but that includes the
whole county.
Then that's in 1845. So.
Right. And that is right. And there's a big difference between the whole county,
of course,
and the city.
Yeah.
And,
I can't find
does that divide out between enslaved peoples and?
I don't know. We'll find out, right?
Yeah.
We're going to find out soon whether we're.
Yeah.
Whether they count or not. That's a whole nother. I won't put you on that spot.
I feel like that number is going to include enslaved peoples.
There wasn't a separate. Anyway, we're not going to get up. You talk about duels. Let's move on to duels.
So, okay. So this last duel. Oh gosh, it's a long story.
Did I mess up your flow?
No, not at all. I'm just trying to decide where to start.
Okay.
Because it really begins long before the duel happens, right? The first thing that happens is we've got, during the Second Seminole War, we've got a group of men who are camped out to the east of here. And if I am correct in how I read these documents, one of the men in the camp was kind of elected by the other men to confront their higher ups that their conscription was up. They were there for 6 months. The 6 months had passed. There was no real like fighting going on, and they were asking to leave. And long story short, it became very contentious. And so a gentleman named Parrish began to argue with William Ward, who was the one that was elected by the other men to kind of have this conversation. It became very contentious in the camp. And Augustus Alston, who was in charge of the whole regiment out there, yells from his tent, "Just shoot the damn dog." And so Parrish, being given a direct order, actually shoots William Ward right there in the camp, and he dies. And so by the time,
but there's a whole bunch of unhappy guys who are pals of Ward, and so this, I'm sure, does not sit well with them.
Right. I mean, can you imagine today being,
I was just following orders.
Yeah, I was just following orders. Famous last words.
Right.
So they eventually make their way back to Tallahassee. Parrish, who did the shooting, kind of falls away from the story because he was given a direct order. And so he's kind of excused for shooting William Ward. But William Ward's family felt like it was an unjust order, and they were upset with Augustus Alston. And so William Ward's uncle, George Ward, confronts Alston and basically challenges him to a duel. And Alston says, "No, thank you," which in and of itself that's a real slap in the face. Dueling was an honor thing. If you were, just because you're dueling doesn't mean everybody thinks somebody's going to die. A lot of times these duels were, it was agreed upon that they were just going to face each other and either shoot off or come to some sort of reconciliation. Just meeting each other in the moment like that was a way to restore honor, right?
Okay. So you didn't have to necessarily die.
Right. But so saying no when somebody, challenges you to a duel is that's an insult to begin with. So Alston refuses to duel with George Ward, the uncle of William Ward. And until one day, Alston is actually doing some banking, and George Ward walks in with a horsewhip and whips him in public. I mean, talk about an insult.
Right.
And so that's kind of when Alston's like, "Sure, fine. Okay, let's duel."
Now he's been backed into a corner.
Right, exactly. So they go ahead and decide that they are going to duel. Let me just check my notes because I want to make sure I get this one right. They duel on Houston's Hill, which is, I think, around the Myers Park area today in Tallahassee. And this is 1837. So they meet on Houston's Hill to duel. And it's kind of a weird, the way they set it up is there are, I think, 30 paces between them and an obstacle in between so that they can't cross. I always think of like tug a rope, right? Like you can't go past the middle or something, or you're trying to get past.
Oh, right. I see.
So anyway, so they are facing each other, and they each have 4 guns, and they're going to take a shot with one gun, like 2 holsters and 2, one in each hand. And they're going to take, I know, it's so crazy.
It's like Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam kind of, but I shouldn't laugh. I mean, it's a gun. It's, even if they were more crude than they are now,
right,
people did die from these
absolutely
being shot.
And I mean, the horror of being shot back then,
right.
Medical
That's right.
treatment was not what it is today. Right.
Yes.
And so, so anyway, so they face off, they shoot their bullets, and nobody's dead. And this is a duel to the death, this particular duel. And so being the Southern gentlemen that they were, they agree that they will let each other heal from their current wounds, and they will come back and face off again.
And finish it off.
One of them will not walk away the second time. Right. So I always pause here in the story and say something to the effect that, this was men, right?
Right. I think that was actually my comment was during the thing. I said, "Oh, men," and we had one man on the tour before you even said it, I was like, "Yeah," because who's gonna do that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so it was
right.
Yeah. So anyway, Southern gentlemen, they're going to let each other heal so that they can come back and shoot at each other again, basically. Right. But thankfully for George Ward, he never has to meet Augustus Alston in a duel again, because Augustus Alston gets himself mixed up in a whole nother controversy and ends up in a different duel with somebody else.
This guy's a dueling fool.
He is, yeah. And there's a lot of hubris that's kind of involved in all of this, and honor,
right.
those kinds of things. And so anyway, they have a different way of looking at the world than I do today.
Sure.
And it's really funny. But the difference between being a historian and a storyteller is I really do try to get my facts right as I'm telling these stories. But I get to put myself into them and make comments like, this is really dumb, right? I would never do this. So I'm not trying to sugarcoat it or make it sound,
right.
perfect.
Hey, we call that editorializing in my business. So you are allowed to editorialize.
Good. Because those are the best parts. So Augustus Alston is actually one of the heads of his political party at the time. He was a Whig, and his biggest kind of opponent in the contrasting party was Lee Reed, who was a Democrat.
The infamous Lee Reed.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a lot that is going on politically at this time. A big part of it is there was some disagreement about banking practices. And so that got very contentious. But my understanding also, the Whigs were very anti-Andrew Jackson, whereas the Democrats were pro-Andrew Jackson and his policies. And so it just was very contentious. And long story short, it gets ugly. They are taking out basically little advertisements in the local newspapers and saying terrible things about each other. They're posting placards on trees in front of the Capitol that, accuse each other of being cowards and scoundrels. And
did
you pull that up?
I actually took a picture of that. And should I read it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. To the public, the object of this placard is to inform the public that General Lee Reed has declined giving to me an apology for the insult offered me at St. Mark's on the 5th instant, I guess, that he has also refused to me that satisfaction which, as an honorable man refusing to apologize, he was bound to give. I therefore pronounce him a coward and a scoundrel. William Tradewell, Tallahassee, October 26th, 1839.
Yeah. So, it's ugly.
Just amazing. It's like this is the historical version of Twitter.
Yes, very much so. Exactly.
A coward and a scoundrel.
And it wasn't anonymous. Those are always my favorite comments, right?
Yeah.
If you want to have a conversation about these things, please tell me who you are.
It's not whatever.
Yeah.
Two cats or whatever their names are. Yeah.
No, it was ugly. It got really, really ugly. And so they, Alston and Reed decide that they're going to duel. And, the insults have been going back and forth, and they can't seem to, as these two political parties, move forward. And so they're going to duel. And the outcome of all this is that whoever dies, that political party is now not going to have their powerhouse, right? And so you're almost winning the political season in this duel. So Augustus Alston and Lee Reed decide they're going to duel, and they go up closer to the border of Georgia. I think the little town area was called Mannington, and maybe up there near Lake Iamonia.
Right.
And so, but the idea too is they're kind of in the middle of nowhere. Dueling is illegal, by the way. In 1832, dueling is illegal, and this is now 1839 when this is
illegal schmillegal.
Right. I mean, so here's the thing, right? Like, I make fun of politicians a lot on my tours.
Good.
But when you're the political power, you, I guess, can choose.
The rules don't apply to you.
You don't have to follow.
I think that might be some of that going on nowadays too. That might be a thread line through history.
Yes, there's definitely a theme that is happening.
Yes.
So anyway, but they go up there to that close to the border, I guess, so they can kind of, plausible deniability or something like that. Right. So they get up to the dueling ground, and the understanding in town is probably that Augustus Alston is going to win. He seems to be a better shot. He's got more military experience. And so people seem to think that Lee Reed is not going to walk away from this duel. But they get up there, and it had apparently rained the night before, so the ground was wet. And when the men heard the word wheel, which is you wheel around, you turn, right? So so they hear the word wheel, and when Alston turns, he somehow loses his footing. Now, I've also heard that part of that might be that he still had a leg injury
from the first duel.
Or something. And so regardless, he falls on the ground. And as he is falling, he shoots off. I think it might hit the bullet hits the tree above Lee Reed. And so now Alston is on the ground and has lost his shot. And Lee Reed has to make an instantaneous decision. And he decides to shoot Alston on the ground.
Wow.
Not that I can sympathize what he's thinking, but this is they're there for honor reasons.
Contextualizing.
Yeah, right. Thank you. So, they're there for honor reasons. If he allows Augustus Alston to live, then he has not fulfilled the agreement of the duel, which would look dishonorable, right? Also, there's all this political contention, and so he doesn't want to look like a coward. He's already been called out.
He could weaken his party's position if he doesn't follow through on this.
Yep. So he shoots him, and Augustus Alston dies. And so we think that should be the end of the story. The duel is over. Lee Reed, he's actually supposed to, I think, become the Speaker of the House after that. I think that's correct. But anyway, he moves on in life.
Oh, that's what we call nowadays. That's a leadership battle.
Right. Yes. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
What he doesn't know is, and this part is legend, although it makes a lot of sense, that as Augustus Alston's two sisters who lived here in Tallahassee were preparing his body for burial, they actually removed the bullet that killed him, that hit him in the chest and killed him, and they put that in an envelope and sent it to Texas, where their other brother, Willis Alston, was living.
Oh, he's a rascal.
Yes.
He's a rascal.
He is. And I always make the joke that, he was in Texas because Florida wasn't quite rough enough, right? Like, it's crazy here, but Texas is even better. Some things never change.
Yeah, right? That whole rivalry.
Yes. So he receives this letter.
But Lee Reed also must not have been a popular guy, because that placard that I read was about Lee Reed.
Yes.
And this was somebody completely different that wrote that.
Right. But that Tradewell was part of Alston's political party.
Oh, okay. All right. I see. All right. So politics is really a driving force behind all this, just reminding the Divas. Yeah.
Yeah. In this
it's a power struggle.
It is a power struggle for sure. But Willis Alston, the brother of Augustus Alston, doesn't. So this is where the story kind of diverges from politics, right? Because he's coming to avenge his brother.
Right.
And he arrives in Tallahassee, and nobody knows that he's coming except for him and his two sisters. And Lee Reed is actually having dinner with the other politicians up at Brown's Hotel, which was across from our Capitol downtown here. And Willis Alston walks in and shoots him across the table in front of a ton of witnesses.
Wow.
And he leaves the hotel, and then it seems that Lee Reed gets up to kind of chase him, whatever, I'm going to go chase him down. And he's already been shot. And when he, again, men, but
it really is Deadwood. It does really remind me of Deadwood. I don't know why.
Well, can I tell? So if anybody's out there listening who is like a screenwriter, I just feel like this would be an amazing movie.
It really would be. The story between the Lee Reed and the Alston, this whole long duel. And I mean, we haven't even got to the end of it yet, folks.
Right.
There's way more.
There's more. And so, so it's such a fascinating story. So when Lee Reed gets up to chase Willis Alston out of the hotel, or go find him outside of the hotel, Willis Alston had actually turned around and come back. And I think they meet in the doorway there. And Willis Alston is brandishing a knife and then begins to hack away at poor Mr. Reed. Yeah. So now Lee Reed is injured. None of them are life-threatening injuries, but he has he's been shot and he's got some lacerations from this. And so I've heard differing kind of parts at this point. Willis Alston either was arrested that day and then shortly thereafter let out, on his own recognizance or whatever, or that he kind of disappeared. I'm not exactly sure what the truth is there, but in any case, Willis is free.
Okay.
And Lee Reed is concerned about his safety.
You think?
Yeah. Right. I mean, rightfully so. And I think this is where he was supposed to become the Speaker of the House at this point, but his injuries, he wasn't able to perform his duties. And so,
all right.
So, I don't know, maybe there was some political, I think Willis was really just coming to revenge, for revenge.
I don't know, but they might have helped.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so Lee Reed is recovering from his injuries, but he's still got business to do in town. So business went between the Capitol, which is where it still is today, and Park Avenue, which is where the original courthouse sat.
Where the, what's the bankruptcy courthouse now, the federal courthouse building on Park.
Yeah.
Park in Monroe.
And that was a big commercial district. There, of course, were all kinds of mercantiles and that kind of thing. We had hotels all over the place back then. And so the
brothels,
right? Racetracks.
Racetracks.
If you've been here on a Friday or Saturday night during football season, I don't think we have anything on what it was.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. Wow.
But, drinking aside, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these politicians were constantly kind of going back and forth between the Capitol and the courthouse doing business. So Lee Reed forms a posse to kind of protect him. So now we have in territorial Tallahassee a posse of politicians following Lee Reed around, and they are armed to the hilt, right? They are carrying knives and they're carrying guns and they're protecting Lee Reed. And you can just imagine the kind of the hubris around this, right? As they're walking back and forth on Monroe Street and doing their business. Lee Reed, eventually Willis kind of doesn't show up again. And so, it's just like today, you lose interest in a story, right? And so, plus these guys, they have business of their own. They can't.
They're running the territory.
Right. They can't spend all day, every day, following Lee Reed around. And so that posse kind of fades. Long story short, Lee Reed is walking from the Capitol to the courthouse one day, and Willis Alston shows back up. He's actually, I think, had been staying with a friend who lived on Monroe Street. I think the man's name was Michael Ledwith. And Willis Alston jumps out of Michael Ledwith's house with his shotgun, shoots Lee Reed in the back.
Ooh.
Lee is able to keep standing long enough to turn around and kind of look him in the eye, see that it's Willis Alston, and he's shot a second time in the chest.
Oh, boy.
And then, and this is broad daylight. This is business hours. There are witnesses. I mean, this is... Everybody knows what has happened, right? And we've now had basically the assassination of a political figure on Monroe Street, right near Park Avenue in Tallahassee. And people are just, I mean, it's a little much, right? It's a little much.
Even for Tallahassee, at that Wild West at its peak.
Right. Willis Alston ends up getting back to Texas. And when he gets there, he has another conflict with some other guy out there in Texas, and he's arrested and put in jail in Texas. The story goes that someone from Tallahassee just happened to be traveling through Texas at that time and told those locals what had happened between Willis Alston and the murder of Lee Reed. And those townspeople were like, well, not here. That's not going to happen in Texas. So the family pulls Willis Alston out of the jail and kills him in the streets.
Oh my gosh.
So Willis Alston is now gone. He's dead. Lee Reed has died. Augustus Alston has died. I mean, and all of these stories are, circulating. People are hearing everything that is going on. And Tallahassee at this point, it's 1841 and we want to be a state.
Right.
So we're going to have to clean up our act a little bit. And so the town elects Francis Epps, who is the grandson of Thomas Jefferson. He has a plantation here in Jefferson County. He is elected as our first mayor, and he hires 6 men to become our first police force. And those men, I mean, they get to work right away. They get rid of the racetrack. They get rid of public intoxication. They get rid of the brothels. They start to enforce the no dueling laws.
Oh, wow.
And so there was actually at that time, in response to all of this, there was legislation that was put forth that if anybody was caught dueling, that whoever survived that duel would be hanged. As kind of a deterrent.
There you go. Okay. All right.
Now, it did not pass, but it was put forth, right? As how are we going to stop the dueling?
Right.
But they did start enforcing the no dueling laws. And really that Lee Reed, that whole incident was the last duel between Augustus Alston and Lee Reed. That was the last duel in Tallahassee. And
really? That was the last duel.
And so it was the pinnacle of the, Wild West atmosphere here. And then things changed and Tallahassee cleaned up its act. And by 1845, we had become a state.
That's a great story. I love that story.
I do too.
I love that story.
And our counterpart, by the way, is Iowa, right? This is the time. This is where we had to, if you brought in a state of enslavers, you also had to bring in another state that wasn't. And so we have Iowa was our pair for Florida.
Well, that's really interesting. Thank you for that story. You brought some notes of stories that you wanted to tell. So I was going to ask you if there were any other legislative stories that feature legislators or the legislative process. But I want you to just decide what you'd like to talk about.
Well, we could go back to Prohibition.
Oh, right. Quick. There was that. Thank you for remembering.
Right. So obviously we have, it's so funny when you think that we're a college town. If you've ever been around here, on a football weekend.
Right.
There's obviously partying still happening.
Yeah, there was quite a bit going on that night. It wasn't even a college football night that night. We were here. Yeah.
We had, there was a concert in the park.
Yeah.
Down at Lewis Park. And then there was also a breast cancer fundraiser.
Right.
The Sheriff's Department.
I think it was the lead up to FAMU's homecoming weekend, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. So it was, there was quite a lot going on when we were out walking around, which is great. I love that. That's what I want that, right? I really would love for Tallahassee to be an amazing walkable city that has, people engaged out in the downtown area. We used to have that, but things have changed.
They've been trying, and I don't know how successful that endeavor has been.
I think it's hard. And again, this is local politics, right? Like, how do we spend our money? How do we spend our energy in a local way?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's true.
But I mean, that's just Stephanie. That's what I would like. So Prohibition,
I live in Midtown, so I would like that too.
Yes, I do too. And my husband works down on Clayman Plaza. I mean, we spend a lot of time in this area, and we ride e-bikes, and obviously I do walking tours. I really truly believe that when you walk in a city, you become more connected.
Oh, you do. I totally agree with you, because when I walk to the Capitol, just the shore, and I walk in my neighborhood, and I can walk to, Lake Ella from where I live, and I can walk to different restaurants and the bookstore or whatever from where I live. And I enjoy that. And I think you do become more connected. And you feel like you're more of a part of the community. Yeah. You see things that you wouldn't see if you're just driving. And when you're driving, you're in your car, you're in this bubble. Yeah. You're kind of isolated, and you're removed from your environment.
And you're focused, hopefully, on the road.
Yeah, or whatever's playing on your radio or whatever.
Yeah, so you're not really looking around. I actually just did a tour last night, and one of the people on the tour said, I had no idea. Like, I had no idea these things were here. I've never seen this building before, and she was just in awe at how when you slow down and you really get to know a space, right? And I do think for community involvement, walking tours, those types of things really do, it connects people to a space. And then when you're connected to a space, you want to preserve it, and you want to make sure that it's cared for. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, not just walking tours, but when my husband and I travel, the first thing we do is book a walking tour.
Right.
We love ghost tours because that is just a fun lens for learning history.
Yes.
And I highly recommend, I'm a local tour guide, but I highly recommend local tours, because the big tour companies are not interested in.
I wouldn't even think about doing anything other than a local tour.
Right, yeah. I mean, a local person knows the history, the community, the people,
that connection. Right.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what we do, is we always get a walking tour, a lot of times a ghost tour, but you just learn the geography of a space, the culture of a space, and it's fun.
Yeah. And speaking of fun, back to Prohibition.
Prohibition. Yeah. So,
or not fun, the fun police, I guess.
Yeah. There's so much with Prohibition in Tallahassee. So we had a big temperance movement. I have heard it put to me that the women in Tallahassee were tired of their husbands, like, doing legislative business and then coming home drunk, at the end of the day, because they would go out and have drinks or this is also a time when people drank. Now we kind of have this weird cultural rule where we're like, 5 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. And then, then you can have a drink, right? But not before 5 o'clock.
But that's a relatively new development in the drinking culture.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And, so
they'd be drinking all day long. And by the time they got home, if they didn't go to the brothel first.
Right. And we could even talk about the history of alcohol, right? Alcoholic beverages were safer than water at some points in history, because, the alcohol would often kill bacteria. Right. So, that's why we have monks that, made wines and beers and that kind of thing. So, but anyway, so now we are drinking all the time, or not drinking as much as they were drinking all the time. So the women in Tallahassee, from the way that has been told to me, is they were kind of tired of their men coming home, after work and drinking. We had at least 4 bars that were operating in downtown Tallahassee in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It might have been 5, but I know for sure 4. And one of them was at the corner of what is now College Avenue and Monroe Street. Mm-hmm. We call it Lively Corner now. And there was a bar there, which I've heard all kinds of stories came out of that, that it was really nice when you first got there, but it would kind of, as the night went on, it would get a little rougher. Anyway, so the women's temperance movement, and we have to remember, this is before women had the right to vote, right? Women could not vote at this time.
That's right.
So in order to make changes, they had to convince their husbands to vote in a particular way. But Luella Knott of the Knott House which is just around the corner from where we're sitting right now.
That's right. It is.
She was a huge temperance movement participant. She really seemed to have kind of the ability to rally women. And so women in Tallahassee would parade. We have if you go to floridamemory.com, there are images of women, they have their wagons with their signs, about alcohol being a sin. And, so they would parade up and down the streets. And it went so far as at one point, some of these women, these Christian temperance women, would go to these bars and sit in prayer together at a bar.
Oh, they weren't taking the hatchets? I thought that was
No, that was actually the police officers, right?
Right. Yeah.
No, the women would sit in prayer in a bar, hoping to,
shame them into submission.
Yes, yeah. Which I think, oh my goodness, that's really brave for a woman.
It's an act of resistance, really.
It is. Well, and this is how they voiced themselves, right? Again, they did not have the right to vote.
It's a nonviolent act of resistance. Yeah.
Right. I mean, personally, I might think they just need to have a drink, but no, I really do admire.
Loosen up, ladies. Right.
Yeah. But I do really admire the women then, whether I agree with what they're.
Well, they were committed to their cause for sure.
And they found creative ways to make their voice
heard.
So anyway, so by 1904, the women in Tallahassee had convinced their husbands that we should get rid of alcohol being sold in town. And so all those bars closed. I mean, and we also had some vineyards around that had to leave.
And so what happened? Did the drinking, was it driven underground, or did they have private clubs then like they do in other places where they don't have alcohol?
Right. So yes, I mean, just like other places. And this is 16 years before the rest of the country, really.
Wow.
Right.
Early adopter here in Tallahassee.
Yeah, for sure.
On the cutting edge of sobriety.
Love it. I might make that my new tagline. So yeah, we definitely do. So I'm actually a docent over at Goodwood Museum and Gardens.
Oh wow.
And it's really, I love it. It's interesting, but some of the great stories that come out of there happened during Prohibition. So they had a woman named Fanny Tears, who was an incredibly wealthy widow from up north, who bought Goodwood to use as her winter retreat.
Okay.
She is known for her rolling carts of alcohol. So we have 5 carts that could be rolled around the
They were
grounds.
actually they could be outdoors too.
Yes.
It wasn't like a tea cart. These were hardy carts.
Yeah. So if you visit the museum, you actually see one.
You guys,
hallway.
Divas, you may be invited or have attended a reception at Goodwood, because it is really close to the Capitol.
Yeah.
It's actually very close to where I live in Midtown.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been out there, it's worth taking it. Do they still have they used to have a great little restaurant in there.
Yeah. So it just Damas is the name of it. They only do, I think, brunch and
This is a new version then, because this one closed down. Yeah.
I mean, within the last month or so.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
really
Great.
So they do brunch and lunch. And I think it's mostly by reservation only.
Oh, okay.
And it's only on Fridays and Saturdays right now.
Maybe not when the divas are in town.
Yeah.
But
I think there's long-term hopes of more
expansion. Yeah. But they do have receptions and fundraisers there. So you may have attended something there. If not, it's definitely worth taking a trip there if you've never been there.
Yeah. So Fanny Tears,
she's rolling around with the booze,
rolling around with her carts, yeah, and
she's getting it from Al Capone. No, I guess this is pre-Al Capone era, yeah.
So she came in 1911, and we outlawed alcohol in 1904. So when she comes, she is serving alcohol, even though it is you're not supposed to be able to buy it
right
here.
Oh, this is Al Capone era then, yeah.
So, well, yeah, that's true. I don't know if he's coming up this way at that point or not, but the story is, or the legend with her is that she, was having these kind of parties and serving alcohol, and that people would leave Goodwood a little tipsy and come into town, and the local sheriff had to pay a visit to Fanny and remind her that it was prohibition. And she said, "Not at Goodwood."
Oh, that's funny. Not at Goodwood.
Not at Goodwood. And so in order to kind of help, there was this problem apparently of people coming into town after they had spent time at Goodwood. And so she built a house that was later dubbed the Rough House by her staff, so that people could sleep it off.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
And that's out there at Goodwood too, the Rough House.
The Rough House. So yeah, so we have, there's all kinds of fun stories that come through Tallahassee. We got Al Capone, we got Fanny Tears, and then we also have this like huge temperance movement.
Right.
I've always wanted to figure out if and I have no idea. I'm just interested, like Fanny Tears and Luella Knott were living here around the same time.
Oh, did they bump into each other on Monroe Street while shopping for ball gowns or whatever?
Right. Did they? Right. Was there any communication between them? I would love to have been.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I'll have to look into that one.
Yeah, do that. I want to know what I want to know what with the girls duking it out over booze.
Right?
And, that'd be funny.
These would have been two powerful women, right, in town. And so, anyway, so we have all kinds of that kind of story happening in Tallahassee.
We're running late here, so I really wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other like plantation kind of things, but I think we'll have to save that for another time. We'll have to get you back. Is there one hidden gem or one story that you pulled out that you'd like to share with us before we call it a day?
So, oh gosh.
Or two. We can keep going.
There's so much.
I know.
There's just so many fun stories. One of the things that I found really interesting as I was, researching that territorial period, there was a real fear in Tallahassee of abolition, right? I mean, this was a Confederate capital.
Yeah.
And so,
good. I'm glad that you're talking about this. That's what I wanted to talk about, was slavery and the impact on slavery on Tallahassee's development.
Yeah. And we have a very deep and rich Black history here in Tallahassee.
We do.
And it is often not talked about or given the spotlight that it should.
We also have a very ugly other side too.
We do, yeah. So this is one of those stories. I was reading recently that during that time period from like 1835 to 1865, there was some sort of meeting between the Postmaster General here in Tallahassee and some of the other political figures and plantation owners. And they agreed, or the postmaster agreed, to not allow abolitionist newspapers to be distributed in Tallahassee. So they really were kind of hiding the other side during that time period. They did not want to, have that conversation, I suppose. And so that's one of those things that, I read that and it's heartbreaking, right? Like on the one hand, it's from my perspective, kind of scandalous and interesting, and at the same time, really heartbreaking that they had to hide and censor. I mean, it's censorship, right? So we are
along those lines. I was asking you about a story that I had heard.
Yeah. So, and it's true. So, the governor of Florida.
John Milton.
Yeah, Milton. So he was the governor here when this was a part of the Confederacy. And he was a staunch Confederate. And when the Union Army came into Tallahassee and, basically announced the Emancipation Proclamation and said, this is the way that it's going to be. The war is over and you're now we're now unionized again. John Milton left Tallahassee and went to his plantation. I think it was in Gadsden County. It was west of here. He went out to his home and committed suicide because he would rather be dead than live under.
In his final message to the state legislature, he said that the Northern Army leaders, quote, have developed a character so odious that death would be preferable to reunion with them.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I know. Wow. It's so heavy.
It is so heavy. And just, yeah, I personally have a hard time with, having a hatred toward other people so deep that death is preferable, right?
Do you have a hard time as a storyteller, as a historian, as a business person, telling these kinds of stories? Or, I mean, I guess you do a Black history tour too, which I'd like to take. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, everything is so charged, so emotionally charged. We're so divided now. Does that affect when you're preparing for your tours? Do you think about that?
I do. And so, there are so many layers to that as well. Like, I want to present those stories fairly, and I want to make them approachable at the same time, right? So I don't want to present them in a way that makes people uncomfortable and they stop listening.
Right.
Because what a walking tour does is allow you to hear history in a way that makes it a little easier to approach. You're not being lectured to, you're not being forced to, believe a certain side, you're being presented a story. And so I want to be able to tell that story in a way that is honest and fair to the people involved, but also allows for the participants to hear it and be willing to engage with it, right? So I put a lot of time into that. I also want to make sure that my language is it's right.
You're mindful. You're mindful. Words matter.
Yes, they really, really do. And so I put a lot of time thinking about that. I'm not afraid to ask questions. So if I am, recently I had a conversation with a woman who is a Black historian, and I was able to ask her some questions, and I'm not afraid to ask those questions. And I would rather ask the wrong question than not ask the question at all. Right.
I think there are no wrong questions, isn't it? Right.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I agree. But, so part of that too is I'm willing to be corrected if I've used the wrong language. And there have been times I've changed a story on the tour in order to be.
As a white person, I write a lot about race and minority issues, and I've been doing that for almost 30 years now. Yeah. And so it is something that I'm very cognizant of, and, when I talk to my Black friends about, and then at the same time, you don't want to, because this is a Black person, they're going to speak for all Black people, because there's an element of racism in that, or stereotyping or whatever. So it's a challenge. And even talking about race at all in this now is really challenging.
Yeah. But so important.
Or slavery or any of that.
And so I will say that I don't think in general, Tallahassee has done an amazing job of doing any of that, right? I mean, we have this incredibly deep civil rights movement.
Yes.
And we don't have we're a capital.
We have a Black college.
Right. And we don't have a civil rights museum or, I mean, even if it wasn't a full museum, but an accessible, permanent collection somewhere. And so, I mean, we do have the Riley House, which is amazing. Yes. They're also more focused on other things as well. And so, yeah, the fact that we don't have that is interesting to me.
Me too.
And I would love to see that in the future. But yeah, and it's just I try to be really thoughtful. I try to be mindful. I'm constantly learning. I'm never satisfied with any of my tours or my stories. Like it's constant. I mean, I think I do a good job.
I'm that way about the podcast. I'm like, oh, I should have done this.
Right.
I should have done that.
There's always another book or another article to read or another map to look at.
I know.
And so,
well, you've got a page full of notes. And so I don't want to, I don't know. We're running a little long, but did you want to share one more story or should I ask you some fun questions?
No, you asked me some fun questions.
Okay. All right. These are some fun questions and I ask them, I ask almost all of them of most of the guests. Crocs, yay or nay?
Nay.
Okay. So you should see the look on her face. That was a super triple nay with the look. Okay. Casper or Sabrina?
Oh, Casper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pumpkin spice, yay or nay?
I mean, it's
meh.
It's fine.
Meh.
Yeah.
Favorite app on your phone?
Oh, that's embarrassing. Maybe. So I am kind of a gamer. So, yeah. So I have a couple of, cheesy games that I play, but.
Okay, she's looking embarrassed. I'm not going to make. This is supposed to be fun, not embarrassing.
I play Fishdom.
Fishdom. I never even have heard of that one.
It's just a silly kind of matching game. But,
hey, anything that takes your mind off of everything, right?
That is really
right.
Definitely it.
Stephanie Chandler, the amazing tour guide and the owner of Storied Paths. Thank you so much for joining me here in the Speakeasy today. We've got so many more stories that we want to hear about, and it's just been a treat.
Yes, thank you so much. I love that we're in the Speakeasy and we got to talk about Prohibition.
Me too.
That's amazing. But thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Thanks for listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida, hosted by News Service senior writer Dara Cam and produced by me, Mike Exline. Music for the podcast was recorded by Periodic Labs, LLC.